Before there was Final Fantasy VII, Japanese-style retro RPGs hadn't taken off in the West yet. I mean, sure, there were some big ones on the SNES, but the genre just wasn't on the radar of the average gamer. 1996's Wild Arms on the PlayStation is the perfect example of this. Because it was released before the FF7 craze, it was overlooked by a lot of people that otherwise would have loved it. When I played it, I was in junior high and without a job, but I saved up enough money mowing lawns to get it. Wild Arms was created by the tiny developer Mediavision, which only made 2 games prior, and ironically, both were shooter games. Wild Arms thus represented the company's first foray into the RPG world, and it adopted many of the classic characteristics of the genre. Characters gain levels, use special abilities and items, and explore an immersive world with an epic story. Battles are turn-based and play out on the basis of each character's response statistic. The game's dungeons also feature many basic puzzles that need to be solved to progress, making it a bit like the Lufia games. The world of Wild Arms is also full of tools that can be obtained to allow the player to move through the game. For instance, Jack uses a grappling hook that can be used to traverse over pits, while Rudy's bombs can destroy boulders that stand in the party's way. In the same fashion, Cecilia's tear can magically open select doors. Each character can obtain 4 tools in total, each of which has some use in the game. It was a unique way to keep the player engaged even outside of the story and combat, and something that worked out well and stood out from many other games of its type. In a way, it kind of reminded me a little bit of using various items in the Zelda games to bypass hurdles in the dungeons. It's the same kind of feel. In terms of the story, Wild Arms takes place in a world that experienced a great war 1,000 years in the past, which was waged between the humans of Filgaia and the Metal Demons. The humans eventually defeated and sealed the demon leader, known as Mother, into a cocoon because they could no longer counter her rapidly regenerating body. Over the years, though, a small number of demon loyalists succeeded in taking the incapacitated body of Mother and organizing an effort to locate pieces of her heart in the hopes of reviving her and seeking vengeance upon the humans. In the world of Wild Arms, ancient relic mechanics, or arms, are weapons stigmatized for granting uncontrollable power, and often make wielders of them into pariahs. One example of this is found in Rudy, one of the main characters. As an orphan, Rudy's daring rescue of a lost boy in a cave revealed to his village that he carried an arm, which led to him being an outcast. Another lead character, Jack, is a world-traveling treasure hunter and former knight of Arctica Castle. He searches for an ultimate power of sorts that will allow him to confront his troubled past. Cecilia is the Princess of Adelheid, greatly skilled in magic from a life spent studying in Curon Abbey. Despite her stature, she longs for adventure and is curious of the world around her. One thing that just has to be mentioned when it comes to Wild Arms is that many of the game's themes are very inspired by American Western films, which is especially interesting considering it was made in Japan. Its use of firearms, environmental settings, and other factors really show this effect even when mixed into a fantasy story of magic, dragons, and castles. Even the soundtrack has a lot of Western-style influence. This is evident throughout the game, and even from its opening seconds in the anime video intro. Indeed, the soundtrack features lots of acoustic guitars, mandolins, and especially whistling. This made the score completely unique in the annals of RPG history, and is something that fans have always recognized. It was definitely a risk that probably paid off for its originality. The game's decision to feature only 3 main characters was also a risk. This did allow the game to pack a lot more information and story into its characters, unlike some RPGs that featured huge casts. However, it could also be argued that the game's small array of characters made some of the character tropes that much more cliché. I can see both sides, but I do think the game's small number of characters allowed for the backstory of each to be explored in a way that many other RPGs could never do. Learning new things about the characters and their motivations as you progress through the game is one of the best aspects of Wild Arms. Wild Arms was one of those unique games that stood at the dawn of a new era, where 3D was first used in RPGs. As a result, a lot of its graphics, especially in battle, look extremely dated. The huge-sized polygons and exaggerated character appearances really look subpar now, and the game hasn't held up well compared to several other games from the era that went with a 2D sprite-based look instead. However, this issue isn't apparent outside of combat, as all the other gameplay takes place in an overhead view, where 2D sprites look very similar to what one would expect from other 1990s RPGs. These visuals definitely look better in hindsight than the 3D battle graphics, and the animations actually still look really good today. As an avid RPG nut from the 1990s, I can tell you that if you like many of the other titles I featured on my channel, you'll definitely like Wild Arms as well. It's a straightforward classic RPG that didn't break entirely new ground, but added enough of a unique twist in its innovative Western feel and emphasis on puzzles. Its soundtrack also really stands out and is definitely one of its best aspects. It came out early in the life of the PlayStation, so it's not quite as polished as some of that system's later RPGs, but it's still a lot of fun. It's well worth playing today, and is possibly one of the system's top 10 RPGs. If you like this review and remember Wild Arms, leave a comment below about the most memorable aspect of the game to you. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell below to be alerted upon the addition of new ones. Also, please join my Discord community linked in the description, and consider supporting my channel via YouTube's Join feature to receive member exclusives, such as advanced videos and complete video transcripts.